Hey gang, what's good? It's Wes. Hope you're doing well. So, thank you for joining me on this video. This video has actually been a long time coming. I couldn't quite find the right, perspective, pun intended, you'll see why in a minute, to take on this. But I think I finally kind of cracked the code, and that also feeds into the theme of this. So, whenever you first get started in art and you want to start taking it more seriously, the first thing you're going to see, or one of the first things you're going to see, is work on your fundamentals. So there's tons of fundamentals to work on. I mean, I have a list of them right up here, but they can range anywhere from perspective, anatomy, color theory, values. If you go a little bit more in the weeds, it's like edge control, composition. There's all these things that you have to consider while you're making a piece if you want it to be the most effective version of an idea. And the thing is, fundamentals by themselves are staples. They are, by their very nature, foundational, and they are required. But, drawing boxes and drawing spheres and stuff like that, and then working on, certain methods of measurement and, rule of thirds compositions and stuff, that can take you very far. In fact, you can actually make a career just using those fundamentals and really kind of mastering them or improving on them time after time. But they get a bit stale. Just working on fundamentals for the sake of working on fundamentals is like a professional bodybuilder just going to the gym and sort of walking the treadmill and then doing light bicep curls and, yeah, I'm here, but what am I really doing? And is there a way, this is something I've been wondering, is there a way to continue to study your fundamentals? Something that, you never really master them. You just get better and more efficient at doing them. Is there a way that you can take a fundamental that you really need to work on, let's say it's one of your weaknesses, and use it in a way that's a little bit more exciting? Is there a way to maybe remix these ideas and push yourself to that next level while studying your fundamentals, while making something for your portfolio at the same time and improving everything? It sounds too good to be true, but it's not. And we're going to discuss ways that you can do this and implement this no matter what your workflow is. So yes, fundamentals. How do we do some fundamentals and actually have fun while we do it, while we practice them, but still make something that is interesting to look at, and then you could post on social media, you can post on your portfolio, you can actually improve while you are studying, because normally whenever you're in study mode, I don't know about you, but for me, if I'm in study mode, creative mode kind of takes a back seat. And that's always why I kind of err on the side of caution about doing a study session. Oh, I'm just going to use this as a study session. Because I feel like I'm not necessarily creating. I'm almost like regurgitating, which I know is a kind of a word, but it is. You're taking in information and then you're seeing how directly and how exactly can you interpret it onto the page or onto the canvas or however you're working, right? And it can be kind of dry. It can be a little less creative because someone else already made the decisions. You're testing measurements, you're doing stuff like that. It's hard to feel in that creative control while you're working on things you need to work on. And I have been, let's talk about this painting right here that I'm working on right now. I've been really enthralled lately with revisiting the Loomis method. If you're not aware of the Loomis method, it's a very, very quick, very fun, really, way of measuring measurements of the head and different, cutting the face into thirds, starting with a sphere, and then, doing a contour line around and then up and over. That way you're getting the direction of the face. Then that midpoint's going to be kind of the top part of your brow line in the middle where your nose kind of connects. And then you do some measurements, halfway from that midpoint, wherever angle you're looking at, to the top of the sphere, whatever angle you're at. That's going to be your hairline. And then you do that equal distance from that dot from the hairline, equal distance from the dot down, and that's going to be the bottom of your nose, kind of where the nostrils sit and kind of where that shadow will hit on the nose. Then extend that out, extend that line out from where you go from the bottom of the nose down an even amount again, and that's going to be the bottom of the chin. So I really like that. Also, you kind of shave the sides off the circle, off the sphere, matching that up and down line. Basically, you shave off the sides, you put a little cross in that little the circle area that it creates, and then the bottom rear quadrant is going to be where you place your ear. So that's a very quick explanation of the Loomis method. I actually have a live stream where I did Loomis method for about 3.5 hours, and we talked about it. We did it at different angles, and it was good practice, right? And, you know, I was doing it for a live stream, so that was my version of being creative and expressing, is I was live. I was able to chat with people. It was a study session, which by myself, without the cameras rolling or whatever, could be pretty dry. But having people to chat with, bounce off of, we're making quote-unquote content. I hate that word, but it is what it is. It made it better. It made it more fun. It made it more engaging. So, hey, you could use that tip right there. If you're on a Discord or something like that and you know you need to do some studies, but you're like, man, I can't do this by myself. This is going to be super boring. You know, put on an audiobook or, you know, just talk with someone. Just have one of your buddies on chat and be like, hey, man, I got to practice my perspective grids. Do you mind hanging out for 45 minutes or whatever? Like, go for it. That's a good way to do that. But with this piece, I wanted to see if I could kind of use the Loomis method and not make a human character. I did some stuff in Orktober. You know, I have a video on that, but make a lot of orcs and stuff. And I've really liked designing orcs because it's a lot of diagonals, which you don't really get a lot with building the face unless you're doing like an Asaro head style structural face. Like big teeth and big ears and, you know, really furrowed brow and like all these great silhouette shapes that you can kind of block in wherever you want. But I was interested in, could I use the Loomis method or some sort of like, you know, edited, finagled version of it and make an orc easily, like from any angle or whatever. So we're doing kind of the basic 3/4 deal. I also wanted it to feel pretty dynamic, like kind of a more traditional painting. So that's why we're using Rebel at first. And then we might move on to Photoshop or Clip or something like that to kind of get tighter brush strokes, really kind of dial in those settings. Whenever we see what we need and what we want, put in the nice brush strokes, put in the thick stuff for Rebel, then move on over to like a Clip or Photoshop or Krita or, you know, what have you. A little bit tighter renderer engine, I guess, and work from there. Also, a thing that I wanted to study was working in color from the get-go. So I'm a big fan of value, as you all know. Value is a huge fundamental. I'm convinced if there is one fundamental that will take your work from like hobbyist / amateur, beginner, you know, whatever you want to classify it as, up into the intermediate, and the more you practice it, professional, it's value control. If you can control your lights and darks, not even where light is hitting or shadows are, but I mean lights and darks as far as like, you know, if you're building a landscape, things closer to you may be darker, and as they get further away, they get lighter, right? It's just atmospheric perspective. So it all kind of ties into perspective, but you're still dealing primarily with values. The same thing, if you're making a character, make sure that each part of the character, let's say they have a sash or they're wearing a cowl or they have a cape on or armor or something like that, each accessory can be its own value. Now they can be very close in value, but it's a great way to differentiate different materials. So you're already kind of halfway home. You know, you're discerning these differences through value, and it's a great way to do contrast. So that also deals with composition and things like that too. So it's a really heavy hitter. So I highly recommend using value as kind of the crux to all of your other stuff. So with this, I was like, let me work directly in color, because I think there's going to be some surprises that I see when I'm still utilizing value, here's a darker blue, here's a kind of a lighter, more cyan green blue, here's more, saturated maybe here in the shadow and maybe not so saturated in the higher midtones towards the highlights. So a lot of that type of stuff to play with too. It's a way to do a fun design, which as an orc kind of fits in that fantasy wheelhouse that I've really been liking lately. Good shape language, which is another fundamental that I need to work on, is my composition as far as what does a silhouette look like of, let's say, a character or a landscape. Does it read well, even if it was just in pure, cardboard cutout? That kind of construction paper style. Would it still look good? Would it still look cool? That's something I also need to work on. And given me practice on the Loomis method. So can I stretch the Loomis method? Now that I've practiced it with human characters for a little bit, for a few weeks now, can I kind of manipulate it and make it a little more interesting, a little more fantastical, while still staying with the general structure that is super, super helpful? Primarily those leading lines at the very first, showing us where the character is looking, and also the differentiation by, okay, where's the bottom of the nose? So for the orc, the bottom of the nose is actually closer to the eyebrows than, let's say, the hairline. So that's one edit I have to make. One of the mistakes I always make, and I'm the first to admit it, a lot of my characters have really long noses. Because for the longest time, and this is sort of embarrassing, but I was mismeasuring the Loomis method. I was using the bottom of the sphere as the bottom part of the nose, which is a no-no, because, that's not an equal distance. It's not an equal distance from the middle of the nose to the eyebrow, or the middle of the nose to the hairline going upwards. I wasn't doing it the equal distance going downwards for the nose, and that's something I needed to fix. And I hate to admit this, I kind of discovered this like 2 weeks ago. I've been a pro for almost 5 years, working with some of the biggest names on earth, and I got the Loomis method wrong. You know what I mean? I just wasn't thinking about it. And that's why this type of stuff can be so important. If you go back and you study 1-point perspective, yeah, it seems like elementary school stuff. You put a dot in the middle, in the middle of the canvas, you put a horizon line, and then everything faces the dot. All your lines go towards the dot unless they go straight up and down. Yeah, that seems really basic. But what if you took that idea and remixed it? What if you turn that on its head, almost literally? Can you make, let's say, a city using 1-point perspective, but instead of looking straight towards the horizon line, let's say the horizon line and that dot is the middle of the sky. So imagine you're in this big metropolis and you stare straight up. That's still 1-point perspective. You're looking at 1 point. However, now you have to change how your brain is working. Okay, if we're looking straight up, yeah, still follow the rules of 1-point perspective, but can you make that city look interesting? Are there flying cars? Is there traffic? Is this a cyberpunk thing? Or is this medieval stuff? Is this a big castle keep? And the castle's just so unbelievably large and tall that standing is or are you inside of a chapel, like the Sistine Chapel, looking straight up? That's technically 1-point perspective. All roads lead to your eye line. So if you take the actual foundational fundamental of 1-point perspective, which is you learn this in 2nd grade in grade school or primary school, 1st and 2nd grade art class, you learn it. Can you make it still look interesting and feel interesting while fitting within whatever narrative you're going for, whether it's sci-fi or fantasy or realism? Can you still make it work? That's the power of the remix, because your brain is still engaged. You have to make very creative decisions and creative ideas, but you have the groundwork of that fundamental, whether it's the Loomis method or 1 point or, rule of thirds or whatever. These fundamentals are carrying the load. They are getting the pressure off of you and actually giving you more freedom. which seems counterintuitive, but I promise once you start doing this, once you find a bare bones Art 101 fundamental, and you say, how can I interestingly do this? You are going to, one, surprise yourself because you got it in you. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to start doing this and you'll be like, hey, this actually is looking okay. Because you have that fundamental as a kind of a brace, a crutch, not in a bad way. But, you know, it's like you're, you know, whenever you go bowling and you put up the little bumpers on the gutter. So no matter what, however bad you are at bowling, the ball always goes towards the pins, you know? Like, yeah, it might be a little bit too much of an aid, as it were, but it works. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still getting that bowling experience. You're hoofing the ball down the rink and whatever. And like, it's happening down the lane. So just move forward. That's what this is about. If you want to progress, you have to move forward. You can't be stuck in a rut. I've been talking to a few artists on my Discord lately, and we're all kind of in this sort of rut right now to where no matter what we're working on, it's just not working. And we're like, man, is this juice worth the squeeze? I'm working on this thing. I'm 4 hours into this and I'm bored out of my mind. Like, this isn't worth it. Like, this piece, while it might look good and it might be well rendered and it might whatever, it's just not fun. It's not exciting. Who cares? I'm going to put this on the portfolio and it'll get no traction, just like all the other stuff got no traction. You know, it seems self-defeating, but in a weird way, that's whenever I kind of like splash the water on my face. And I'm like, all right, we got to mix this up. We got to do something to like, you know, if we got a big pile of matches, we got to light one of them. You know, something's going to blow up. we're going to do this, right? Let's go ahead. Let's cause a little bit of chaos. And let's approach what we know we need to work on, what we know we can do, and something out of our reach at the moment. And if we mix all that into a blender, what happens? Right? It's an exciting prospect because it's going to keep you on your toes. It's a great way to remix everything you already know. I know there's like fashion advice and stuff. And, you know, me being a nearly 40-year-old man, fashion is not my, you know, I'm not a fashionista or whatever you like. Nah, I wear the t-shirt and I wear some jeans and some sort of shoe and I'm pretty good. Right. But the number one thing I see whenever you're making a wardrobe, what a lot of people like to do is they want to go out and they want to spend like $3,000 on suits and all this other stuff. And, you know, and like, I need 55 new shirts and I need all this designer brand stuff and all this. And every kind of fashion blogger on the planet worth their grain of salt is going to be like, no, all you need to do, buy like 2 pairs of jeans, you know, buy maybe a pair of slacks in blue or black, buy a few dress shirts, a few casual shirts, and you're done. You're done because you can remix all of those different ingredients and make new ensemble wardrobes, right? It lets you have, you know, what is the whole Factorial Math thing? If you have 4 of these and 8 of these, and how many mixtures can you get? Think of it like that. Okay, you know 1-point perspective. You know essentially how to draw a box in perspective. Okay, well, what if you made a city of boxes? Why not? Try it. What's the background? What's the story behind that city? Are they floating up in the air? Well, how are they doing that? You're starting to creatively think on something that on paper could be pretty basic, but you're giving yourself that creative ambition and that drive in order to make the thing more interesting to you and more palatable to even do the study. Because doing the study is the most important part. Putting this stuff into action. You know, we've always talked about if all it took to get into shape or whatever was like reading about it. Oh, I read all these tutorials. Oh, I read all these books. Great. Can you do it? You know, oh, I read this recipe. Well, can you cook it? Have you ever cooked it? Have you tried making it? It's a different experience. You can have all the measurements, but how do they all mix together? Right? Can you make it the good meal, make it look like the picture in the magazine or the cookbook or whatever? Like, That's where this comes from. It's the miles. It's the miles you put in. And I think that is super critical because a lot of times as creative people, we think, well, in order to get noticed, I have to make something that's never existed before. I have to be super creative. I have to do something to really blow people's socks off. That I want them to be like throwing money at me because I'm such a genius and everyone wants to work with me. And it's easy to fall down that trap because we feel like what we're making is not living up to that standard where we're like reinventing the wheel. But I'm here to tell you, you don't have to. Use what you already know. Really dig in and push yourself. Be like, do I know this as well as I think I do? Because now your studying is a means to an end. And you're also building up more confidence. Like, I've never drawn more portraits in my life than I have in the past 4 weeks. I've done portrait after portrait after portrait. And I used to do life drawing stuff in Atelier. But I'm having more fun now because now I know why I'm doing it. Because can I use this Loomis method, which is very handy, very quick, to make characters that maybe aren't even human, but have personality? Can I do that? Because that's the one thing I've always feared my art was lacking was personality. Sure, I had cool brushstrokes and good edge work and the values are right and stuff like that. But what was it that was really making this stuff sing? And that's what I'm after. And starting to rely on these braces, these fundamentals, the foundational stuff has been really eye-opening and letting it do the hard work. If I'm a movie director, I'm not going to reinvent the video camera. That's not my job. The video camera's already made. Do you know what I mean? We don't have to reinvent this stuff. There are things available, like the rule of thirds, like the Loomis method, like 1-point perspective, like 3-point perspective and fisheye lens stuff and all that. All this exists and it's out there for the taking. So get it, utilize it, push yourself with it. But rely on those fundamentals to carry you through, because that way you get the best of all worlds. You have it to where you're really studying. You are actively engaged in your study session. And I promise you, dollars to donuts, I don't even know what that means, but dollars to donuts, you will improve. You can't help it. You cannot help it because you're going to be doing things you love to do with a security system, and it's going to push you forward. You can't help but move forward doing that. But hopefully this was important for some of you. I think it was important for me. I needed to put a voice to it. I needed to put words to it. I've been mentally thinking about this for a long time, but I wanted to show an example of kind of what I was meaning about kind of remixing your fundamentals. Get them all together, put them in a jar, shake them up, and then dump it out and see what you can make with it, right? Because you're going to realize maybe you need to freshen up on a few of them, and that's fine. Fundamentals are a thing that will improve as you improve, but you always have to practice them. You always have to. It is what it is. This is the library part of building a visual library. You have to have references to fall back on, and that deals with your fundamentals. But that's my time. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is there something that you're really good at, and have you mixed it with something you're really bad at? I'd love to know in the comments, because especially perspective stuff, I like doing 1 and 2 point perspective, but once you get any more than that, I start to get a little hazy, a little iffy on it. So maybe in the next few videos we can tackle that stuff as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like what you see on Rebel, there's a link to Get Rebel in the description, as well as Clip Studio Paint as well. We've been featured by them, and now we're actually sponsored by them as well. So go give them a shout. We appreciate them very, very much. But until next time, you know the drill. Go make cool art, and we will see you all next time. Peace.